Provided by Roe v. Wade for almost 50 years now. This year, thanks to the Mississippi case that's been before the U.S. Supreme Court, the subject of the leaked draft that suggests Roe will be reversed, Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health. Folks like Jonathan Keller, the president of the California Family Council, are the closest they've ever been to their goal. Good morning to you, Jonathan.
Good morning. Always great to be with you.
First, we haven't visited since the leak of the draft opinion. What was your reaction to that and all that's happened since? We're looking for the final ruling really any time now.
Yeah, I was up at 7 a.m. this morning. The court is releasing opinions at 10 a.m. Eastern. So I was furiously refreshing the Supreme Court's website this morning, thinking we might even get that decision in Dobbs v. Jackson today. We didn't get it today, but we anticipate it literally any day. It could be Thursday, it could be one of the days next week. But going to the leak itself, I think there's two things that a lot of pro-life advocates felt. On the one hand, we were really concerned that the entire draft opinion like this was leaked. Obviously, that's unprecedented. It's really an attack on the court's autonomy. I think it is an attempt at intimidation. But on the other hand, we were hopeful and we were encouraged to see what Justice Samuel Alito had written in that draft opinion. One thing that I think is important to remember here in the state of California, this decision, whenever it does come down from the court, it likely actually won't change very much on the ground here in the Golden State. We know what's happening at the legislature. We know how aggressively pro-choice our government is, especially Governor Newsom. So really, this is just an opportunity, I hope, for pro-life advocates like myself, like the California March for Life tomorrow, to really make our positions known and to offer hope and support to women that are facing an unplanned pregnancy.
I was definitely going to ask you about the fact that things really won't change here, but there has been what seemed to be a groundswell of support for an elimination of the federal right to an abortion. Now more than 26 states have trigger laws set to eliminate or restrict their individual state rights to the procedure if Roe falls at the federal level. Why do you think that is, and why do you think that is now?
Well, I think this is an example, honestly, of the fact that pro-life advocates have been working for 49 years to show the humanity of the child in the womb. I mean, you think about it, in 1973, how different was our country? How different was medical science? I mean, we did not have ultrasounds. We did not have incredible prenatal surgeries that can correct and treat birth defects. We did not have these incredible windows to the womb that let you see the life that is developing even in its earliest stages. So I think the reason why you're seeing citizens from across the country work to protect life in the womb is because they see that life for the first time. And I'm realizing that in the state of California, we have a long way to go. We're not going to be Texas or Florida or one of those other states anytime really soon. But my hope is that even within the state of California, that there would be opportunities for people of goodwill, people of common ground to come together and say, look, can we at least agree that, abortion should not be used as birth control? Could we agree that maybe abortions should not be used for sex selection purposes? Just because you're having a little girl, that's not a good reason to have an abortion. So, but the other thing that I really hope out of this is that California, we all know what a huge budget surplus we have. We've been hearing about it in the news for months now. I hope that California would invest some of that budget surplus into making life easier for pregnant moms, make it easier for them to give birth, make it easier for them to parent their children. That's a way that I think California really could take steps in a pro-life direction.
I have to ask you, since you brought up the use of the budget surplus in that manner, a lot of times when we talk about, the 26 states I just mentioned that have these trigger laws, people that are more on the end of the conservative spectrum, there is a lot of enthusiasm about making sure that that life gets into the world. But I have to put a question to you that I've asked other pro-life advocates. There doesn't seem, out of the more conservative political spectrum, be it just the public or electeds, the same amount of enthusiasm when it comes to backing the social programs that will support that life once it's here. So a lot of people feel like that's awfully hypocritical, that that's a real contradiction and to be frank, disingenuous.
I hear that. And to be honest, I think there have been some pro-life advocates in the past that historically have not done enough to care for life after it is out of the womb. I would admit that, and I would acknowledge that. That's actually why I'm excited, because when I work with a lot of younger people, I myself, I'm 39 years old. I have a lot of friends that are in this pro-life movement that are much even younger than me, in high school and college age. Among the younger generation of pro-lifers, I do feel like there is kind of a shift where there's more of a willingness and even more of an eagerness to use federal money, state money, and even local money to try to provide an on-ramp to families, and really not just say that we want to ban abortion and protect life in the womb legally, but we also want to offer a hand out, a hand up to these families. And that's why, for example, you see thousands of pregnancy resource centers across the country. Just here in the state of California alone, almost 200 pregnancy resource centers that are stepping up to meet those needs and help women, whether it's with baby showers, with infant formula, with parenting classes. I think that's really the way forward. And it's an opportunity, frankly, for us as the pro-life movement to put our money where our mouth is and to show that we do care about women and children, not just before birth, but absolutely after they're born as well.
Well, that's a very different answer than I've gotten from a lot of pro-life advocates when I've posed that same kind of question. We're almost out of time, but the state's only second March for Life ever steps off at 11 o'clock tomorrow, right at the state capitol with a rally.
That's right. It's going to be a little toasty. I know we're expecting triple digits. I just heard that from your weather forecast, but we will be there in force. We have thousands of people that are planning to come out. We have speakers from across the country that are flying in. And again, the message that we are promoting tomorrow is that equality begins in the womb. We believe that all life is worthy of protection and respect, and we invite everybody to come and stand with us peacefully as we promote that message tomorrow at 11 a.m. on the west steps of the Capitol.
All righty, Jonathan Keller, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thank you so much.